0517 local time, North Atlantic. Subsurface contact, bearing 087, speed 5 knots, depth 180 feet. The voice over the circuit is calm. No emotion, no alarm, just numbers. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS George H.W. Bush, screens glow under dim red light. Flight operations have just paused between recovery cycles. Up on the deck, yellow shirts stop for half a second as the message moves through internal comms. Contact. No one asks where it came from. Not yet. That part can wait. 5 knots is not a rush. It is slow, measured, intentional. Classify. Across the strike group, the escorting destroyer USS Gravely quietly adjusts course 2 degrees to starboard. No announcement goes out to the flight deck. The carrier does not change heading. The formation simply tightens, almost too subtly to notice. Contact increasing speed, now 7 knots, course steady, closing. On the sonar display, the ocean begins to separate itself into layers. Background noise fades behind a clear mechanical rhythm. Blade count becomes readable. The sound pattern does not match commercial traffic. A pause. Possible Kilo-class derivative. Russian origin. No one uses dramatic language. No one needs to. Across the strike group, readiness shifts upward. Quietly, professionally. Crews move to stations. Hatches are secured. Aircraft overhead maintain position. The contact accelerates again. 12 knots. That is no longer a simple transit profile. That is a controlled maneuver. A projected closest point of approach appears on the tactical display. 3.8 nautical miles. Time to closest approach, 14 minutes. The carrier does not turn. Recommend active confirmation, the Gravely sonar supervisor says. Approved. A single active ping rolls into the Atlantic. The return comes back immediately. Solid, metallic, clear. The submarine does not change heading. Contact now 15 knots, still increasing. On the bridge of the Bush, the captain studies the repeater screen. He does not raise his voice. He does not lean forward. He simply says, maintain posture. Log everything. The strike group closes in another half mile. Subtle geometry. Destroyers shift bearing to cover the carrier's flanks without broadcasting intent. Depth change. Contact climbing. 150 feet. Periscope depth is approaching. A Kilo-class submarine is built for silence, for patience, for disappearing into the water. But running shallow while increasing speed is not silence. It is visibility. It is a message. Speed now 18 knots. That pushes into high-speed underwater movement for a sustained approach. Projected closest point of approach shrinks. 2.9 nautical miles. Time to closest approach, 10 minutes. The Gravely launches her MH-60R Seahawk. Rotor blades cut into the cold Atlantic air. Sonobuoys are prepared but not released. This is presence, not escalation. The submarine climbs again, 110 feet. At that depth, targeting geometry improves. From this range, any serious move would unfold fast. Minutes would matter. Still, the carrier does not turn. Closest approach now 2.2 nautical miles. Active sonar continues. Ping, return, ping, return. The submarine does not break away. Contact 22 knots. The acoustic signature grows louder through the water column. Inside the submarine, machinery is being pushed hard. Noise patterns spike. The profile becomes harder to hide. Inside CIC, calculations update in real time. Countermeasure systems come online quietly. No sirens, no shouting, only procedure. Depth 95 feet, periscope depth confirmed. The Seahawk sweeps the surface with optical sensors. No visible mast yet, but at that depth, the submarine commander can see the carrier. And the carrier knows it. Closest approach 1.4 nautical miles. Time to closest approach 6 minutes. The geometry no longer looks like a parallel track. It looks like an intercept. Recommend evasive course for carrier, a tactical officer says. The answer comes instantly. Negative, maintain course. A U.S. carrier does not give up the center line without cause. Contact 25 knots. High-speed run confirmed. This is the edge of the decision point. The Gravely increases active sonar frequency. The Atlantic answers with sharp metallic clarity. We see you. Then, silence. No sudden acoustic spike. No sharp mechanical cue. No sign of an immediate escalation. Instead, contact reducing speed. Now 21 knots. A small shift. Heading change detected. 4 degrees starboard. The closest point of approach begins to widen. 1.3, 1.5. The submarine slides off the direct line. No radio call, no surface signal, no dramatic ending. Just a curved track moving across a glowing digital display. By 0531, projected distance opens beyond 2 nautical miles. Speed drops to 18 knots. Depth increases gradually past 120 feet. The Seahawk holds position overhead, recording every second. On the bridge of the George H.W. Bush, no one celebrates. No one relaxes. The contact is still there. But the line has been tested, and the line has held 0532 local time. Subsurface contact steady, bearing 091, range 6.8 nautical miles. The Russian origin submarine has widened slightly off the carrier's bow, but it has not left. It is pacing the formation now, parallel, close enough to matter. Speed 18 knots. Depth 120 feet. Not hidden, not retreating, just staying close enough to be seen. Calculated presence. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Gravely, acoustic analysts isolate the blade rate again. 6-blade screw, narrow harmonic band, signature consistent with an improved kilo variant, diesel electric. The data is logged, time-stamped, and archived. Contact increasing speed, 21 knots. The submarine angles inward again, only 3 degrees. But at sea, 3 degrees is enough to change everything. The projected closest point of approach tightens back under 2 nautical miles. That is not drift. That is correction. On the bridge of the USS George H.W. Bush, the captain gives no visible reaction. The carrier holds base course and speed. Flight operations remain paused, but no alarms sound. No panic, no noise, just control. The Gravely deploys sonobuoy pattern Alpha. The MH-60R Seahawk banks low over the water and releases the first buoy. It hits the Atlantic surface and begins transmitting immediately. A second follows, then a third. A triangular grid forms across the submarine's projected path. Triangulation improving, confidence high. The acoustic picture sharpens. Every ripple, every shaft rotation, every change in the water around the hull. Contact now 24 knots. High-speed run sustained. A diesel-electric boat moving that fast underwater is spending stored energy quickly. Batteries do not last forever at that rate, which means this move has a clock. Depth shift, contact climbing, 80 feet. That depth gives a cleaner sensor picture. It also makes the submarine easier for the Seahawk overhead to track with dipping sonar. The submarine commander knows this and continues anyway. Projected closest approach, 1.1 nautical miles. Time to closest approach, 4 minutes. Inside CIC, countermeasure systems move from standby to ready. Acoustic decoys are prepared, defensive solutions are calculated. No one says the dangerous word out loud. They prepare for the possibility anyway. Active sonar pings increase in tempo. Ping, return, ping, return. The Atlantic becomes a conversation. Contact holding intercept geometry. The submarine's track now aligns almost perfectly across the carrier's bow. If this were a training scenario for a close approach, this would be the textbook moment. The carrier finally moves. 2 degrees port. Not a dramatic turn. Not a retreat. Just enough to force the submarine to recalculate if it intends to continue. A message without words. Contact speed decreasing. 20 knots. A flicker on the display. Depth 70 feet. The submarine is shallow now. Very shallow. Periscope depth is within reach. Above the water, the Seahawk drops lower and activates forward-looking infrared. No mast is visible yet, but faint thermal distortion flickers across the surface. Closest approach now, 0.9 nautical miles. Under 1 mile. At sea, that distance is close enough to feel personal. If both vessels were surfaced, it would be close enough to see details on the hull. Underwater, it is even closer. Inside the Gravely's CIC, a systems officer speaks quietly. If a release signature is detected, recommend immediate defensive response. The captain nods once. The moment arrives. Acoustic operators listen for the unmistakable sound that would change the entire situation. A sudden rush of water, a pressure shift, a mechanical impulse. Nothing. Then, contact turning starboard, 12 degrees. The line bends on the display. Speed drops to 18 knots, then 16. The closest point of approach begins to widen. 1.2, 1.5. The intercept geometry dissolves. Depth increasing, 110 feet. The submarine slips beneath the thermocline layer. The acoustic return weakens slightly as it descends into colder water. The Seahawk circles once, maintaining track and recording everything. No emergency maneuver. No open escalation. No break in discipline. The Russian boat steadies on a parallel course again, now offset beyond 2 nautical miles. Speed, 15 knots. No further attempt to close. Inside CIC, the posture remains rigid. No one relaxes yet. The strike group holds formation. Contact descending. 150 feet. The submarine is moving away, but not running. Controlled descent, controlled speed. A final active ping rolls from the Gravely into the Atlantic. The return comes back faint, but clear. We still see you. Range 3 nautical miles. Increasing. The Seahawk climbs to 500 feet and begins a slow orbit back toward the destroyer. On the bridge of the George H.W. Bush, flight operations resume. Yellow shirts move again. Catapults cycle. Systems return to routine. But no one mistakes what just happened. A Russian submarine worth tens of millions of dollars pushed in at high underwater speed, came directly toward a U.S. aircraft carrier, entered a critical response range, and then, at less than 1 nautical mile, turned away. No open exchange, no final step. But the line was tested, and the line held. 0547 local time. Subsurface contact steady, bearing 095, range 2.6 nautical miles, depth 150 feet. The Russian submarine has not disappeared. It has repositioned. Parallel track, same general vector as the strike group. Close enough to remain relevant, far enough to avoid immediate confrontation. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Gravely, acoustic operators maintain passive contact. The screens keep glowing, the data keeps moving, and beneath the Atlantic, the shadow remains. Active pings cease. The Atlantic goes quiet. Now it becomes a contest of listening. Contact speed, 14 knots. Reduced from the earlier high-speed run, battery conservation, a diesel-electric submarine cannot sprint forever. After pushing that hard underwater, silence becomes survival. Overhead, the Seahawk tightens its orbit. Its dipping sonar lowers briefly into the water column. A controlled splash. Seconds later, data streams directly back to the Gravely's consoles. Contact confirmed. No additional contacts in the vicinity. That matters. 1 submarine is pressure. 2 would be something else entirely. The submarine shifts depth again. 120 feet. Climbing slightly, adjusting to stay within a favorable acoustic layer. The strike group tightens formation by less than half a mile. Not visible to civilian traffic, not obvious on open-source trackers, but deliberate. On the bridge of the USS George H.W. Bush, the captain watches the tactical display without comment. No course correction, no signal flags, no radio transmission. At sea, silence can carry more weight than words. Contact-altering heading, 3 degrees port. A subtle inward lean. The tactical picture recalculates. Closest point of approach, 2.1 nautical miles. The submarine is testing again, not for a final approach, for reaction. The Gravely gives none. No new ping, no sharp maneuver. Passive tracking continues. Periscope breach detected. The Seahawk's electro-optical feed catches a thin metallic mast slicing briefly above the surface, less than 2 seconds. Then it is gone. Time-stamped. Geo-referenced. Stored. The Russian commander wanted visual confirmation. He got it. 2 F/A-18 Super Hornets launch from the Bush. They are not configured for undersea tracking. Air-to-air loadout only. They climb into a combat air patrol orbit 5,000 feet above the formation. The move is visible, not strictly necessary for the submarine contact, but unmistakable. Contact speed steady, 13 knots. The submarine holds depth, holds track. This is no longer an intercept profile. It is shadowing. Distance widens slightly. 2.5 nautical miles. The Gravely shifts 1 degree starboard. Minimal, just enough to widen the buffer without signaling retreat. The Seahawk performs 1 low pass offset from the submarine's last known position. Rotor wash disturbs the Atlantic surface in a deliberate arc. A reminder. Contact descending, 180 feet. The submarine begins slipping back beneath the thermocline layer. Acoustic returns soften as it moves into colder, denser water. Passive sensors work harder now, separating the faint mechanical rhythm from the background sea. Range, 3 nautical miles. Speed, 12 knots. No further heading changes. The Russian boat is easing away, not fleeing, withdrawing. Active sonar remains silent. There is no need to push further. The strike group has held formation, held composure, held control. That is the message. Contact depth, 220 feet. The signature grows faint, still trackable, but no longer immediate. Flight operations aboard the Bush return to rhythm, arresting gear cycles. Deck crews move with rehearsed precision. The Atlantic wind resumes its normal sound against steel. Range, 4 nautical miles, increasing. The submarine's acoustic footprint begins blending back into the background noise of the ocean. One final blade rate confirmation appears on the Gravely screen before the trace weakens beyond high-confidence classification. Contact now 5 nautical miles, depth 300 feet, fading. The Seahawk climbs to transit altitude and turns back toward the Gravely's deck. Dipping sonar retracts. Buoy transmissions log their final data before going silent. No final step was taken. No collision course was completed. No emergency turn was forced. But for 13 minutes, a Russian submarine pushed directly toward a United States aircraft carrier at high underwater speed, entered a critical response range, and then chose not to cross the line. Contact lost. Bearing 098, last known depth 320 feet. The display clears. Only blue water remains. Inside CIC, there is no applause. No visible release of tension. Just data transfer. Acoustic files are copied. Signature patterns archived. High-speed cavitation profiles isolated for future recognition. Because the next time that blade rate appears on a sonar waterfall, there will be no guesswork. On the bridge of the bush, the captain looks once more at the cleared tactical screen. Resume normal operations. The strike group holds course. The Atlantic looks calm, but every sailor on board understands how close the moment came. 06:05 local time. Subsurface contact reacquired. Bearing 102, range 6.3 nautical miles, depth 350 feet. The Russian submarine did not vanish. It repositioned deeper. Passive tracking resumes aboard the USS Gravely. No active sonar now. The Atlantic is quiet again. Every operator leans into the headset, isolating faint mechanical rhythm from the background sea state. Blade rate confirms. Same hull, same boat. Contact speed, 10 knots. Battery conservation mode. Tactical withdrawal. The submarine is easing away from the carrier strike group without accelerating into obvious retreat. Measured, professional. On the bridge of the USS George H.W. Bush, flight operations resume at full tempo. An E-2D Hawkeye rotates through its orbit overhead. F/A-18S cycle back into launch and recovery windows. The deck is alive again. The strike group moves on. And somewhere below the surface, fading into colder water, the shadow keeps its distance. From a distance, nothing appears different. The carrier strike group continues across the North Atlantic like any other formation of gray hulls, moving through open water. But inside CIC, every second is being recorded. Every increase in speed, every depth change, every heading correction, every choice the submarine made is now part of the record. Contact descending, 400 feet. Below the thermocline, acoustic clarity drops again. The tracking solution shifts from high confidence to moderate. The Gravely maintains passive hold. No pursuit vector is ordered. The strike group does not chase. It continues mission profile. Range 8 nautical miles, increasing. The Russian boat is no longer pacing the formation. Its heading diverges 5 degrees starboard. Not dramatic, but clear. Disengagement geometry confirmed. Inside CIC, intelligence specialists begin the preliminary review. The high-speed cavitation profile is isolated for comparison against existing acoustic libraries. Harmonic bands are cross-referenced with previous Atlantic encounters. This is not theater. This is pattern recognition. The moment the submarine accelerated to 25 knots at shallow depth, it revealed more about itself than it may have intended. High-speed signatures are distinctive. Engine strain creates identifiable acoustic fingerprints. Hull vibration patterns differ from boat to boat. Data like that is valuable, very valuable. Contact depth, 500 feet. The Atlantic begins to absorb it. Confidence rating drops again. The Seahawk crew, now secured aboard the Gravely, downloads electro-optical footage. The brief periscope breach is captured in high resolution. Mast silhouette, surface distortion. Angle relative to the carrier's bow. Timestamp archived. Operational record, strategic record, legal record. Range 10 nautical miles. Speed steady at 9 knots. The Russian submarine has shifted from maneuver to transit. It is leaving the strike group's immediate response area. No radio traffic was exchanged. No bridge-to-bridge call occurred. No diplomatic message was transmitted. Everything that needed to be said was said in speed, distance, and control. Contact depth, 600 feet. The passive array stretches to maintain hold. The Gravely's commanding officer reviews the tactical replay in near real time. The critical window is examined frame by frame. 14 minutes from the first high-speed acceleration to the final turnaway. There was a moment, at less than 1 nautical mile, when the margin was thinner than most people will ever understand. No sudden acoustic cue, no emergency order, no break in formation, just steel under pressure. Range 12 nautical miles. Contact fading beyond high-confidence classification. Last reliable bearing, 105. No one orders reacquisition beyond mission parameters. The strike group continues on assigned heading. Contact lost. The sonar display clears. Background ocean noise fills the spectrum again. Shipping lanes remain open. Air wing tempo returns to normal rhythm. Radar screens show only routine traffic, but the record remains. A multi-million-dollar Russian submarine made a high-speed approach toward a United States aircraft carrier, entered a critical response range, came inside 1 nautical mile, and then disengaged. Inside CIC, posture eases from heightened readiness to standard watch rotation. Not relaxed, not celebratory, professional, because what happened was not random. It was a test. The Russian commander measured reaction time, formation geometry, response thresholds, and decision-making discipline. And the United States Navy measured him back. Every acoustic spike, every strain pattern, every hesitation before the turn away. The Atlantic looks unchanged. From satellite altitude, the strike group is only a formation of gray ships moving through blue water. No smoke, no visible damage, no headlines. But beneath that surface, one of the quietest forms of naval confrontation has just played out. No open exchange, no final escalation. Control held. 06:35 local time. The Atlantic is calm again. Flight operations aboard the USS George H.W. Bush move at full tempo. F/A-18S launch in sequence. Arresting cables snap tight and recoil. Deck crews signal with sharp, precise motions. From the outside, nothing suggests that less than an hour earlier, a Russian submarine had sprinted directly into a critical range of the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the replay runs silently. High-speed acceleration, depth climb, intercept geometry, breakaway at 0.9 nautical miles, every second preserved. Aboard the USS Gravely, acoustic specialists isolate the most valuable data segment, the submarine's cavitation signature at 25 knots. High-speed acoustic fingerprints are rare. Most submarines avoid exposing them. That brief sprint delivered a clean profile. Blade harmonics cataloged, turbine strain patterns identified, hull resonance captured. The next time that signature appears anywhere in the Atlantic, it will be recognized instantly. There was no impact, no warning flare, no emergency turn from the carrier. The carrier never exceeded minor course corrections. The destroyer never moved beyond disciplined defensive posture. The Seahawk never took the next step. Restraint is not hesitation. It is discipline under pressure. The Russian commander approached inside a range where every second mattered. He held speed, he held heading, he climbed toward periscope depth, and then he turned away. On the bridge of the Bush, the captain reviews the final tactical log. No commentary. No emotion, just confirmation. Strike group maintained formation integrity. That is the outcome. In naval operations, posture matters more than volume. The loudest message is often the one no one says out loud. A ship that panics changes geometry too fast. A ship that overreacts sends the wrong message. The strike group did neither. Intelligence traffic begins moving quietly through encrypted channels. Acoustic data is transmitted to fleet analysis centers. Patterns are compared against previous North Atlantic encounters. This is the unseen side of maritime confrontation. The exchange is not always about who acts first. Sometimes it is about who learns more. The Russian submarine never crossed the final line. It entered a critical range. It adjusted its approach geometry. It tested reaction timing. Then it disengaged. Why? Because the geometry did not favor the next step. Because the carrier did not yield. Because the destroyer's active sonar made invisibility impossible. And because once a submarine sprints at high speed toward a U.S. carrier, it becomes very difficult to call it accidental. The Atlantic absorbs everything. The surface is calm. The depths are silent. But the message remains. A multi-million-dollar Russian submarine accelerated directly toward one of the most protected naval assets in the world. And the carrier never flinched. Professional navies understand unspoken lines. 1 nautical mile is not just a number. It is close. It is deliberate. It is the kind of distance where decisions are measured in seconds. For 13 minutes, both commanders balanced risk. Neither moved too early. Neither lost control. Only one chose to turn away. No press conference follows. No public warning. No diplomatic storm. Just a line in an operational log. Russian submarine conducted high-speed approach. Disengaged before crossing the final threshold. That is how modern naval standoffs often end. Quietly, the strike group continues. The strike group. Mission profile unchanged. Radar sweeps outward. Sonar arrays listen. Aircraft cycle overhead. Routine returns. But the next time a similar acoustic trace appears on a sonar display, it will not be anonymous. It will be recognized, cataloged, anticipated. Because control at sea is not always about force. It is about composure. The Russian submarine tested proximity. The United States Navy demonstrated stability. No visible aftermath, no public spectacle, just steel, distance, and decisions measured in fractions of miles. Out here, confrontation does not begin with noise. It begins with geometry. And on this morning in the North Atlantic, geometry held.